Okay, so something I've noticed. We spend a certain period of time living in a particular structure. You know, like when you first, let's say 5 years of life, your life had a particular structure to it, right? And now your life has a particular structure to it. But as we cycle through the years, we find ourselves having to leave behind our present structure. We outgrow it. We want to get into something bigger. It's like going from the womb into outer space, right? But here's what happens that we're not even aware of. It would be great if we could be that aware. And I think we can be that aware. But we don't even typically recognize that we are developing a sense of identity in each cycle, that we identify with that structure. Like, I am who lives in that structure. Take away my structure, and you take away me. And that's what the death card represents in the tarot. And so that structure is going to go. And the longer you hold on to it, the longer the death process. But at the same time, just going through the death process itself is something to trust and accept. Because on the other side of it, when you completely die, on the other side of it, you find a new life and a new self that's forming. And so for you to rise up in life to higher levels, you have to be willing to die. You have to be willing to let go of your current structure, not hold on to it, but let it go in order to rise to a higher structure, into a higher level. And that means you have to let go of the identity, because right now you identify yourself with where you're at. And for you to leave where you're at, you have to leave that identification. Until we realize that we're none of those selves, that we're the constant underneath the formation of those personalities which are formed by the new structure that forms around us. And I think both things probably develop at the same time, the sense of identity and the structure that forms. So to go to the highest levels is to have no sense of identity. That also symbolized in the tarot by the death card.
Let's look at a practical example. Let's say that you currently earn, let's say, $100,000 a year. And you therefore think of yourself, you identify with the thought of yourself as being in that financial situation. In order for your financial situation to expand, in order for that structure to expand, right, you have to depart from your current structure. You have to let it go. As long as you're holding on to where you are, you're holding back the expansion into where you want to go. And part of what we hold on to is the identification of ourselves as a person earning that particular amount of money. So in order for you to be able to rise to a higher level, let's say of income, you have to be willing to let go of your current self-concept. And we cling to that self-concept out of fear. Because even if you're earning nothing right now and you want to earn more, as long as you identify yourself as someone who's making nothing, as someone in your present financial condition, as long as you identify with that idea of yourself, you're holding on to that situation. And you might wonder, why would someone want to hold on to a situation of lack? Well, as Bob Dylan said, when you think you've lost everything, you find out you can always lose a little more. And so even someone who has nothing is afraid of the bottom dropping out. Letting go of my current situation in my mind, letting go of the self in that situation in my mind can mean a fall. It doesn't necessarily mean a rise. at least in the imagination of the person dealing with this issue. And this is true for all circumstances, not just financial. It's true for career. If you want to have a larger impact on people, you need to be able to let go of where you're currently at. And that can be frightening, even if you don't have any clients, let's say, in your business, in your career. If you let go of that, and you let go of this self-identification of someone in that situation, of yourself in that situation, who knows, maybe that means you'll get no one ever. You don't know when you let go if situations are going to rise or fall. And that's where the method comes in. Because what we do is we clear ourselves of any negativity, any apprehension, any fears that come up in the process of letting go. And then we work through the method to release ourselves from that fear. And as we release ourselves from that fear, our conditions automatically expand, because that's the natural thrust of the universe. The natural pattern of the universe is toward expansion. Expansion of your love life. Doesn't mean you have more people, but it could mean you have a deeper, richer experience with the person you have. Or it could mean that you're more at peace with having no one for right now. Or it means you find that special person. The universe is in a trend of expansion, but you have to let go of where you are and let go of all you have internally, psychologically, to allow that expansion to happen as quickly and as easily and as tremendously as it can. I was once talking to a client of mine, someone who was making an average of $500,000 a month in income. And he had the desire to become a billionaire, but he also saw the resistance to it. And as we were talking, he said, from his understanding of how to get from millionaire to billionaire, if you have $999 million, you have to be willing to let it go, to risk it, in order to bring it up to $1 billion. And he said, he's just too comfortable. He wants to hold on to what he has. He's not willing to let it go, because he anticipates losing from letting it go. And that's where the fear comes in. But even if you're making $500,000 a month, every area of your life is in the process of expanding. Your spiritual life is in the process of expanding. So we have to let go of our ideas and beliefs and concepts about God and spirituality and the way life works and wisdom in order to receive a higher level of consciousness. And the image of the BOTA Tarot card 13, which is called death, represents this process of being able to let go of the self you were in your mind. And then it's associated in Kabbalah with the imaginative intelligence. You avoid imagining things going down, which is what we see pictured in card 0 of Tarot, the fool who's about to step off a cliff and is looking up. And then if you look at the last card of the Tarot, which represents the culmination of the journey begun by the fool, he's actually flying. He's soaring. He went in the direction of his attention. And the power of attention is represented in Tarot card 1, the magician. Because as you rule your attention, you direct the course of your life. Your life follows the direction of your attention. Your power follows the direction of your attention. So a magician in the spiritual sense is one who directs attention in order to direct power, direct life, direct destiny, seemingly magically, because there's no physical operation, there's just a change in consciousness. So the change in consciousness we're looking at in Key 13 is your ability to go through transition from a lower level to a higher level, which is exactly what happens when we leave this incarnation, we discover that all of these principles and practices we're learning on the spiritual path, as represented by the BOTA Tarot images, these are your afterlife skills. These are the things you're going to apply on your last breath as you move into a whole new structure, a whole new situation, a whole new environment, a whole new context. And in order to move into that context, you also move out of your identification with who you are. You start realizing that you have to let that self go because that self doesn't fit into the new structure. And as you let that self go, you rise into a higher level. And after death, you ultimately rise, just like you go through sleep during life, you go through sleep during death. You rise to a high spiritual level where you have no sense of identity. You just experience being, but you don't have an idea of who you are or a concept of who you are. You simply experience being. And as you experience being, you are flowing with the expansion of the universe, which even takes place on the other side of this incarnation, where you rise to the highest level by holding on to no identity, just the experience of being itself. And you open up to that expanding in love and joy and bliss and beauty and oneness with the divine. And then we experience the same thing when we go through a deep, dreamless sleep at night. The reason why we are called to sleep is not so much for the body. The body could just sit around and rest. And it's not for the mind, because the mind can still be busy and dream. It's for the soul. When the body is at rest, the soul can rise to a higher level than it can when the body is active. Just like when the body is done, is completely at rest, when the body has died, the soul can then rise to the highest level. And that's why we experience physical immortality, not self-mortality, but physical mortality, not immortality, physical mortality. Because the soul needs the body to go to that deep level of being in a state of stasis to rise to its higher level, the highest level that it needs, ultimately for nurturing before it can come back. It can only stay away from the source for so long before it needs to go back for replenishment, because these are sparks of God. And, we're told that there are masters who are able to ascend in their soul to the level where others would have to die to reach, and they can maintain their body and come back. That's entirely possible, at least theoretically possible, based on what we understand. So moving into a higher life is like going up a ladder. You have to let go of the rung you're holding on to in order to reach up to take hold of a higher rung. You have to let go of all you have psychologically and just be at peace and just experience the state of being. Use the method to free yourself from any emotional attachment you have to getting something more or keeping what you have or avoiding loss. You just let go of the whole situation. You let go of the sense of your identity. You stop thinking of yourself as, this is what I do, and this is what I earn, and this is what I have, and this is my relationship. You start letting all that go mentally and just allow yourself to dwell in the peaceful feeling of just being, using the method to clear you from any negative emotionalism, using disciplined practice to stay out of any mental states that picture where you don't want to go, so you can let that go. Picture what you don't want to be, so you can let that go. You have to notice your mental pictures and let them go. And so there's this inner feeling of letting go of where you are and just trusting, letting go of where you are, not going into the fear, the panic of trying to hold on to where you are and hold on to who you are. You let go of your identity. You let go of your attachment to your circumstances. You clear yourself of negative anticipation mentally and emotionally using the method. That allows the expansion of the universe to work freely and fully in every area of your life. So the death card is really an image of rebirth. you're stepping into a new life. You're not just stepping out of an old one. And you're always having to step into a new life cyclically. We can spend a certain amount of time in the current structure we're in, the current pattern, and then there comes a point where we are outgrowing it, where we have to leave it, where we have to go into something larger because it's becoming constricting. Every circumstance, every situation, every structure of circumstance and situation that you're in is like a womb. And you are gestating within that structure until you get to the point where you have to be ejected because you're too big for it. And if you stay in the womb, it becomes a tomb. If you try to hold on to the life you have, it becomes a coffin. You have to let go of it, right? One way or another. And so to let go of it consciously means that I accept that I have no control over my circumstances. I just want to be at peace, in harmony, and in a positive vibration. That's letting go of the situation consciously. We are forced to let it go in a sense when we are dealing with the situation unconsciously, because if you struggle hard against the universe, if you struggle to hold on to what you have, you experience more and more stress and anxiety, which would eventually have a negative impact on your physical organism. And so by resisting growth, people can call upon themselves an early demise. My teacher used to say, we either grow or we die. And it's the same thing with relationships. They grow or they die. It's the same thing with your financial situation, the same thing with your career situation, your impact on the world, the same thing with your level of expression of your gifts and talents. The same thing with your joy, your wisdom, the power of your love. It all has to expand. The level of your intelligence, the level of your consciousness, it all has to expand, and it expands by letting go. So you can look at key 13 on the Tarot to help you to remember what it means to let go and to begin entering your new and greater life by letting go. To learn how to let go, visit www.lovethemethod.com.